It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha, it's Feedback Friday. And Momo's in the co-pilot seat. Hello, Momo. I didn't see you there. Hi, Mephisto. Yeah. Okay, so we're just going to let Momo sit there looking gigantic. Patreons, Zoom party tonight. Check your Patreon messages from me for details. You will be getting a link later today. I think it's probably too late to get in on this one. I'm not sure how Patreon works in this regard, but if you would like to participate in these Patreon community Zoom parties, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Patreon is good for me. So if you like my content, or if you like yelling at me over my content, $1 a month, that's all I'm asking. People like $1 a month is so little. It's like, yeah, but if everybody gives $1 a month, it really adds up, right? You know what $1 a month is? More than $0 a month, right? So I get that a lot of people are cash strapped right now. I'm not going to go higher than that right now. If you can do higher, great. This feels like those pick up the phone and call infomercials late night. Let's get to feedback because there's a lot. The cool thing is that some of the microaggression stuff dovetailed into the boss fight stuff. So I can, hello, Momo, kind of, oh, you're sneezy, huh, buddy? Momo's feeling sicky today. But so you can I can kind of kill two birds with one stone on this. There was sort of a group of comments that WSCM caught on. So clearly, white, straight, cisgender male does need an acronym. WSCM. It's catchy, right? I get confused. Which way does the S go? I don't remember what I did. There we go. WSCM. I can't do my own freaking dance. Do you notice I went here? Because that's where the pony's head is. Bless you, Momo. But there was sort of, is it a problem if a game is made for white, straight, cisgendered men? Is the white, straight, cis male identity bad? No. It's just a question of whether being a white, straight, cisgendered man is inherent to the gamer identity. It's not. And a bunch of people who are angry typing in the comments section kept saying it's predominantly white and male in America, but I addressed that. Like, you didn't do statistics right, sort of thing. And I said right in the show, yeah, it's predominantly white men because there are more white people in America than other types of people, but that doesn't mean the identity's inherently male. Predominantly, not same as inherently. Some people just want to get mad and miss the point. I'm not going to spend time on those. Most people really liked it. Really like Bossfight episode 2, which is great because it took a lot of work. I really appreciate everyone's patience, and I'm glad that everyone seems to believe that the wait was worth it, that they saw an amount of work commensurate with how long it took to do. So that's very good. That's a big relief on my part, and I'm greatly appreciative for that. I'm glad that a lot of people said, I would rather wait and get quality like this than you rush it out. Amazing. So, there's still some people who are like, I want more facts. I address this every time a boss fight episode comes out. Some people are warming to the characters, which is good. Kind of expected, but I'm happy. I'm going to say it again, because perhaps some people are new to this, or they didn't see the Kickstarter for Boss Fight. Gamers really liked Lady Bits. But when I tried to show that show to people who weren't gamers, they were lost. It was too much information. The mind can absorb what the seat can endure. You can only throw so many statistics at the average person before their eyes glaze over. But my mother watched Boss Fight episode 2 because there were puppies and kitties and princesses and singing and dancing and everything in it. She still wasn't quite sure what was going on, but she watched it. And so at least there's a point of reference for people with this stuff. They walked away with a good feeling which takes away the scary feeling a lot of people, especially a lot of, older women have regarding video games. And that's really the starting point, because as much as I appreciate that people really liked Lady Bits, we have to counteract the fact that Tropes versus Women, with all the fallacies it pushes, is taught in schools. They're going to continue teaching it in schools. They're not interested in an alternative. So just, creating a sort of Tropes versus Women alternative, it's not going to do any good. We got to do something that's entertaining first, and get people where they're sort of relaxed and chill, and work it that way. And the best way to do that is with stories. I'm kind of surprised that people don't get that the skits are directly addressing the theme in question. But again, you can't please everybody. So there's no point. Satire doesn't work if you have to explain it, right? Satire is one of those things. Parody is one of those things where some people are going to inherently get it and some people aren't. The thing for me is I'm finding Bossfight much more fun than Lady Bits. And it's because I get to play those characters and do goofy things and tell stories, as opposed to being in a lot of data that some of the issues, especially with Lady Bits, were depressing to deal with. It's depressing to look at data and realize how far apart the data and the narrative are. Being able to do the fun stuff keeps me more sane, because by episode 6 of Lady Bits, I was feeling it. I was feeling the frustration. I was feeling the weariness. I was feeling it felt kind of hopeless. These are really embedded narratives, and all you can really do when stereotypes and things like that are really entrenched is to entertain people first, soften them up, then gives them some facts. If they walk away with their mind changed on 2 or 3 things, that's much more effective than trying to give them 10 things and their eyes glaze over so they don't absorb any of it. I know this isn't what systemized data-driven thinkers think. This is for the majority of people, because I don't need to tell a gamer that the things that people believe about them are not true, right? I'm noticing a lot more female friends of mine watching Bossfight. I'm noticing a lot more female relatives of mine watching Bossfight. I'm noticing a lot more casual gamers or non-gamers watching Bossfight for the characters. And that's good, because as frustrating as it is for me, facts should persuade. Facts don't persuade as effectively as they should. And that is what it is, right? So enjoy the ride. It is what it is, right? Another thing that came up is this idea of games as power fantasy, because I said games about heroism are confused for power fantasy. That, bless you, Momo. That doesn't mean that games are power fantasy are bad. It's just to dismiss all games in all their diversity as all being lumped into power fantasy, especially male power fantasy. No, that's not so. Like, I do not understand. We live in a world, and maybe it's postmodernism, maybe it's critical theory, I don't know. But we live in a world where things are only allowed to be one thing at a time. And people are only allowed to be one thing at a time. And that's really frustrating to me, because that's artificial. Like, that's unnatural. People are complex. Ideas are complex. Art is complex, right? So, just addressing this stuff, because I don't want people who took issue with things, or there's a difference between valid, I prefer more facts, and somebody who is misrepresenting what I said. So me kind of goofing on people who, it's just, they've just proven me based on something I addressed in the show, I want to differentiate that from the people who, I understand, some people like things that are more college lecture-y, less entertainment show first. I appreciate that. That I think needs a writing and research staff if I was to do something like that again. Every statistic, every survey, every bit of data, every bit of fact I put into a show, I double and triple check. And I don't always get it right. There's some problems with methodology that I sometimes miss. Sometimes things are buried. Pew research is dicey. I'm okay with using it for this because Pew research is very good for what people think about things. So the way I use Pew research, that's fine. But for things like what something actually is, like if Pew research did a thing about, do video games cause violence? I wouldn't take much stock in that. Pew research is good at measuring opinion. Pew research exists to do studies that will grab headlines and drive a news cycle. So people pay money for Pew research, right? But I did think that the fact that a greater percentage of Black and Hispanic youth play video games than the percentage of white youth was compelling. And some people said I didn't get into any specific data regarding gender in games. And that's the last thing I kind of want to say about Bossfight before I move on to a comment about the CD Projekt Red thing. I do not find, remember I said I double, triple check things like the proportion of like players are a male, portion of players are a female. I didn't find a single measuring tool of that type I felt confident applying. Because that thing that the ESA puts out of, what is it? Like, 48% of gamers are female, or 52% of gamers are female, or something like that. Those aren't actually gamers. Those aren't actually people who identify as gamers. The percentage of people who play games who identify as gamers is a small minority. And that statistic factors in casual games, Facebook games, phone games like Candy Crush, things like that. That's not obviously what most people talk about when they talk about like AAA gamer games, right? Most women do not play the type of games I do. I know that. So putting that in, I knew that was going to be a red flag for a lot of things. But even when you look into some of the other things, and I include these statistics when I actually teach at college, but for a show like this, it would have been dull, dreary, and would have lost people. The percentage of a player base that is female varies wildly between genres of games. So like, you know, obviously a lot more women play like simulation type games, Match 3, things like The Sims. I hate The Sims. That's why my intense dislike for The Sims is so funny, because that's supposed to be like the girl game, and it is fingernails on a blackboard to me. But you know, obviously the statistics for a game like that, and then a franchise like Halo or Gears of War. Gears of War has a pretty high female player base. So does Halo in terms of shooters. Like compared to like Metro and things like that. And then, you know, like real-time strategy games, turn-based strategy games. Like obviously, like, you know what I mean? To say this percentage of players are female is misleading. Because some genres, very high, the Rabbids games have a really high number of women who play. Overwatch is another franchise higher than the genre. It's like higher in the Ludo genre it's in. Things like BioWare games tend to have more female players than the average RPG. You see how long I've spent delving into this single statistic? And, you know, that's why I didn't go statistics there. I hope I've explained myself there, because yeah, it's a quagmire, and there's nothing neat about it, and people do not care because statistics do not prove the innateness of something being inherently, like one person said that, they enjoyed the show and they're a white, straight, cisgendered male secretary. So there you go. There is nothing inherently female, nothing innately female about being a secretary. Same for kindergarten teacher. And in terms of the complaints of discrimination at work I hear from men, it is in those child-focused roles, right? Men who are kindergarten teachers or early grades teachers. I hear from friends of mine who teach at those grades. They say, yeah, the moms sometimes think I'm creepy, especially early childhood educators who are male. I don't hear the same sort of male nurse thing. It's just nurse now, So in some fields, it's blended better. In others, not so much. And no matter where that's happening, it's not okay. And this is why I don't like the critical theory lens and I may tackle this next week. I'm not sure. I'm working on something regarding critical theory. But this idea that, discrimination is all one way and it's just, white people doing it to non-white people or men doing it to women or whatever, that wrecks the nuance and doesn't create good solutions. Those models break really easily. And so that's why I'm not a fan of them. It is not ideological for me at all. And it was funny. Here's a segue. It was funny to me how many people accused me of ideology regarding the CD Projekt Red crunch thing. That it was some sort of leftist ideology, that I'm some sort of hypocrite or something like this. And one of my many jobs right now is I work as a game dev. The game I can announce I'm working on right now is a game called Undivine Comedy Hank's Inferno. Hank's Inferno on Twitter if you want to follow it. But one of the very early discussions we had is that philosophically, the studio making games is opposed to crunch. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it's a sort of workplace where I could say, like, look, I've worked a bazillion hours this week. I need a break. And they'll say, yeah. One time my boss at the company actually gave me a bonus for, like, he didn't have to. It was an agreement. It's flat fee. But I worked my butt off in something and did a whole bunch of jobs because somebody, this happens in game dev, people can crash and burn sometimes. But, he didn't have to do that, but he did. And I appreciated that. And I appreciate it being the sort of environment where I can go, look, I need to slow down. And that's hurt. And if all game companies ran like this one, where, you can push hard for a while, but when you hit that Nirvana song, I'm so tired I can't sleep, period, which is what crunch does, at least to me, you should be able to go, look, bah, and not be afraid that you're going to lose your job, right? So it does happen in the industry, and that's rare in indie. I got to tip my hat on this topic. I'm getting on CDPR for doing it. I got to tip my hat to a studio without much money, and nobody's heard of them, who is, and this is what people said about CD Projekt Red too. At least they're trying. And I agree with that. Some other people said that there is no firm corroboration that some people have been crunching for a year. Fair point. That's just, somebody says this. nobody's seen it with their own eyes. There was talk of that earlier, that this idea of voluntary crunch wasn't really voluntary at CD Projekt Red. So there's some corroboration, but yeah, skepticism is healthy at that point. And another thing somebody pointed out that sounds right to me, I haven't been able to go back and find the original reporting of them saying, we understand crunch on Witcher 3 was bad, we want to do better. I do recall the same thing that this person, it was a Twitch commenter, actually said, that they didn't say they do absolutely zero crunch. They'd try to do zero crunch, but they didn't guarantee it. And that is accurate, and that is fair. I think that in the end, I do think you guys sort of collectively are right that as long as a company is showing meaningful improvement, that's enough. I wish people handled the Ubisoft stuff from a month ago the same way. I think that's a good metric for everybody, because there's a lot of studios that, I think there should have been more made about, that 70% turnover at Naughty Dog. Like, they're not getting better. They're getting worse. They're going in the wrong direction in regards to burnout. So I think, this was a really good discussion. These are the topics I really enjoy, where I'll go like, what do you guys think? And I get really thoughtful, meaningful feedback, and I can really get a sense that you guys are okay going forward with a game. Because, the last thing I want to do is do something that makes everybody collectively uncomfortable, right? Unless it's sort of agreed upon, oh God, this is going to make us uncomfortable, we're going to do it anyway. Like the debate we watched together. We're going to watch the vice presidential debate as well together. I think that's next Wednesday. But I do want to read one specific comment, because I don't think the commenter expected the response they got. So I'm going to read it. Let me ask you this, Leanna. Where do you buy your clothes? Most of my clothes come from Europe because of the sizing. Just saying. Do you check if the company you're buying from is sourcing its fabric from fair trade sources that don't exploit less fortunate people? I actually do. That's why I spend extra money for Italian clothes. Now, sometimes I get gifts from people that I can't source it, and I'm not going to ask, obviously. But when I purchase myself, I'm very, very hesitant to buy things from places like China, for obvious reasons. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes it's a costume item. I do brand source where I can. Obviously, it's not 100%. But I actually do check. So, do you make sure they're not sewn together in factories using child labor? Yeah. I forget which company it was that it came out they were using child labor. It was one of those department store brands. And I actually stopped buying there. Because what the heck was it? Was it Victoria's? I don't want to say brand did me wrong, but that means something to me. I pay more for things like, bras, so that they're not made that way. Do I use an Apple iPhone? No, I don't. Do I replace my phone every year or two? No, I don't. I run phones until they're dead. So my average cell phone runs 4 years. So all these things, like, do you know where those toys behind you have been made and by whose hands? And if the workers who made them were properly compensated and worked in safe conditions? The stuff behind me, most of it, yeah, not the stuff that came from Loot Crate. I made that Cedric the Owl myself. The Iron Giant came from the Warner Brothers store. You pay a premium for it. A lot of these actually aren't toys. They're figurines. But, and of course we're properly compensated, worked in safe conditions, because I generally doubt so. There you go. If not, then it's really hilarious and hypocritical that you're this upset about some of the most privileged people in the world. This is why assumptions are not great. You're outraged by 6 extra days of work in the span of 6 weeks that is compensated either 150 or 200 depending on the days of the week. This is something that came up a lot in comments. And I want to address it as a final point. And then this commenter goes on to go, I have friends who would regularly stay long hours. I work in the IT industry. I hear because their jobs are their passion. They work for free because their jobs are the passion. Some people I had to personally chase out of the office so they would go home in a reasonable time. And here's the closer. I thought you were different from the Twitter outrage machine and cancel culture and not USA level ignorant about other countries, but apparently not. I don't know what I said that set this commenter off, but here's what I'm going to say about this. You should love your job to work in game dev thing. Unless you know what it is to be so bone-numbingly tired because you have been working without a break, the way I do way too often, this is not fair to say. Anybody who is feeling forced to work to the point that they are making themselves sick, that's not okay. And, I'm going to turn this around you, commenter. You coming at me and calling me a hypocrite. I'm sure you want rights and dignity in your life, which is why you're so, I thought you were different from the Twitter outrage machine. Well, if you want rights and dignity and reasonableness, then you give what you get. Okay. And it's one thing. The problem with this volunteer crunch is that it's not really voluntary. Okay. In a lot of places, people will say it's voluntary. People will say they agreed to, but they didn't feel like they could say no. And we don't want it. You don't get, people think they do better when they spend all their time working. They think they're more productive. The Harvard Business Review has done some research on this. Multiple other places have done research on this. The quality of work actually goes down when you're not getting brain rest. And you cannot, it's one thing, it's real easy to say it's only 6 weeks of 6 days a week. Now, again, I did say in the video, like, my big concern is the people who have apparently been crunching for a year. That's different. I have a tendency to work 21 to 27 days straight, and I end up getting sick. I end up getting stupid. I end up making mistakes. We have days off for a reason. They've researched this, and a 40-hour work week is ideal. Some people like to work, but there's also a big difference between play work you enjoy, and work, stuff you have to do, even if you don't like it, And every job has an element of work you really don't want to do. I cannot stand assemble editing. Having to go through the clips of my own friggin' face and see every flub take and every mistake I make and pick it up and assemble together. And once I start like doing the more refined editing, it's not bad. But I hate doing audio looping. It's soul destroying. And when you're doing that stuff 6 days a week, and bug fixes nobody likes bug fixes. Nobody likes that kind of thing. It's something you have to do. When you're doing that 6 days a week, which guess what? That's what CDP are. That's not working your passion, okay? It's mind-numbing, dreary, repetitive, frustrating work. And it's easy to say, oh, it's only 6 weeks. But when you think about, there's way worse crunch. I've said this, but it's not fair to go, and I'm not saying this commenter said this, somebody else said, oh, boo-hoo, 6 days of paid work. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you're making if you're being forced into it, and your personal relationships, especially your family relationships, are eroding because you're always at work. And it's really easy to say your family should understand. Believe me, it's not fair to expect them to always have to be the one that gives. That it's one thing to be the primary caregiver. It's another thing to practically be a single parent, because here's the thing about somebody working 6 days a week, long hours, they're exhausted that 7th day. They're not present. You're not spending quality time with them. They're crashing from the crunching. And relationships suffer. And this is how capitalism is supposed to work. And because of the erosion of various capitalist protections, it doesn't, because there's so many anti-competitive practices like non-competes. I guarantee you a lot of labor practices would change if non-compete clauses were not enforceable. But it's supposed to be that if you want to attract the best employees, you treat them well. Well, a while back, the business schools, like Harvard Business School, were like, no, you got to treat creatives badly or else they get too complacent. They get lazy. You have to make them want it, starve them, and that became the standard. And I don't believe that CDPR set out to crunch. In fact, I know they didn't. And if it's better, awesome. We also have to keep in mind, though, that a lot of little startup studios have sprung up because people couldn't take the work culture at CDPR, circa Witcher 2, circa Witcher 3. It's similar to people I know who have worked at Rockstar Games, like, never again. I'll change careers before I work at Rockstar. Never again. This matters, we're coming out of that workforces are so desperate that you can treat them like shit. I think perhaps the discussion surrounding this is enough for them to want to do even better next time, to learn from their mistakes. I mean, this is a studio that 2 games ago they almost folded. I mean, Witcher 2 almost didn't happen. And Witcher 3 was incredibly ambitious. We all loved it. I said at the time, no one can duplicate this. No one can duplicate this work model. I am just really concerned about unionization in the games industry. I think labor laws are the better way to go, because I saw it in TV that in Toronto, there are 2 different unions for television, and some shops are one union, some shops are another union, and it limits where people can work. It's anti-competitive. It's ultimately, in the long run, not ideal. People in creative industries need to be able to move around and work on the projects they want to work on and not have to get permission because they want to help a friend out. So either game companies have to just do better, or and I do think we're sort of coming into an age where it's happening in Canada. Labor laws are being strengthened. The US, I don't know, but I reject outright this idea that how much money you make gives any company a right to work someone to illness and exhaustion. That's just, you may love it now, wait 5 years, right? It's also not healthy that so I have to chase people out. I'm just suggesting this. I'm not making an accusation. They might not be telling you the truth about why they want to stay so long. They may be afraid they're going to get fired. Maybe. Just, you came at me hard, commenter. You were wrong about me. You may go, oh, yeah, bullshit. I'm nuts about this stuff. I'm nuts about sourcing things. And I won't deny, I buy, the occasional thing from China, but I don't buy iPhones precisely because they're full of shit in a lot of ways. I actually used to buy Sony phones before they stopped distributing them here. They were premium phones. They never quite caught on, but these things matter to me, And no, I don't do the disposable phone. And you're going, yeah, bullshit. I don't understand why people ask these things if they're not prepared to hear an honest answer. And to accuse someone who has been through it, who has been crunched, of hypocrisy because hearing other people forced to crunch is deeply upsetting, I really think there's a lack of empathy here that needs to be explored for everyone to do better, because I know a lot of really what brutal crunch does. And even something like 6 days a week, someone who has an autoimmune condition or lupus or chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia that is relatively managed, they can't keep up that schedule. You got to be in utterly perfect health to do that for any prolonged period of time. That means you're not getting the best minds. You're getting people with the constitution to suffer through crunch. And you may go in being able to do it. I know a ton of people have gotten sick from it. So I'm starting to repeat myself, but I just want to be really, really clear on this. This isn't a joke. I have friends of mine who have gotten really, really, really sick from crunch. It's not fun, right, Momo? Right. You don't think I sleep enough. All right, everybody, have a really good weekend. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching. Remember, Zoom party. Okay. Thanks for watching. Oh, Patreon, right. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. See, I'm tired. Thanks for watching.